Okay, we're live. I'm going to talk for a minute and make sure everyone can hear me. I'm going to tweak my video settings and just make sure my other screen is doing what it's meant to do. I think we're good there. And I'm sure I'll hear in the comments in just a moment if you can hear me. Whew, it feels like a while since we've been live. Anytime it's been a while, of course, I'm always a little concerned that the the computer isn't going to work or something like that, but it looks like everything is happening the way it should, as long as you can hear me. So welcome to this live studio visit. Really, that's why I'm here today, is just to give you a little bit of an update on what I've been up to in my own artistic life during the last few months. I've been trying to keep a low profile online throughout the spring and summer, and really with the goal of wanting to renew my energy, change direction a little bit, and prune a bit of some of the stuff that I was doing that wasn't making my life any easier. I think personally I have a tendency to, I'm just making sure I'm close enough to my microphone for you to hear me. Personally, I have a tendency to take on, I think we all do this, take on, one more thing and then one more thing. And before you know it, we've got so much going on. And so every now and then we need that reset. I've noticed, and maybe this happens for you, whenever we go on a family vacation, as we start to think about heading home, I start kind of mentally auditing my schedule and thinking about what I'm excited to return home to, and the things that are draining my joy and energy, and trying to figure out how to adjust that, how to make that not quite so burdensome to come home to. And I felt like I actually had kind of a midlife reset as well this year. I turned 45, and I really felt like that hit me with, you've been an artist almost 30 years. You've got hopefully decades ahead of you. What is that going to look like, and how do you make it sustainable? And that's been the question that's been on my mind. What's working for me in my business and in my art as a business, in my personal art development, and also in the things I'm passionate to share with you. And taking these last few months off has been really helpful. I didn't realize how helpful until I started working again, and just felt like I had so much more clarity and a stronger sense of direction. That during the time when I was on sabbatical, I didn't know what that was supposed to look like. It was a hard time. It felt a little directionless. It felt like a healing time, which meant it was also a hurting time. And so with all of that going on, it was just... It took time to get out of the sabbatical, I think, to start to see the good that was coming through it as well, if that makes sense. What I thought I would do, I'm so glad to see that you're here. We're going to do a few things today. I want to show you what I've been painting. I have a little photo album I'm going to share with you to show you what I've been up to these last few months. I know a lot of us feel like personal friends. We've interacted online, and some of us have met in workshops and in person. And so I hope that you'll indulge me a little bit as I share what I've been up to these last few months with some photos. I want to show you what I've been painting, and the little painting battles that I'm working through as I'm working on a new subject in my paintings. And I'm going to talk to you about my brand new course that's starting November 14th, called Back to the Brush, How to Start Again in Watercolor. I wanted to just call it How to Start Again in Watercolor, but I felt like I needed like a short title. That hasn't happened. I'm always wordy. So what we're going to do, first of all, is I'm just going to switch over to my photo album and show you this fabulous family photo that I have to pop up on the screen first of all. That button. There we go. So this is my beautiful family. I feel like this was kind of how my sabbatical started. My daughter, Samantha, she's the one in the middle. She graduated from high school, and we got to celebrate her graduation. She's an honors student and a volleyball player. And And that was a real wonderful time of celebration for her. I actually really, I hosted a big party, and oops, wrong direction. Oh, hang on, I know what I did wrong. You're gonna have to bear with me for a second. I gotta fix my screen so I can show you more photos. I actually hosted a party, and we were able to invite friends to an outdoor backyard party. And I smoked a brisket, and it was really delicious. And I made this massive cake that managed to feed the group of friends that were there, and it was just a really special time. That's Samantha with her baby, her hot rod, and we did a whole series of grad photos around her car. She's one of my pride and joy children. All three of them are pretty amazing. So it was really fun to celebrate her graduation. Okay, we go this way. In July, I jumped on a plane and I flew down to Wisconsin to Madeleine Island School of the Arts, and I taught a workshop. This is their campus on Madeleine Island, and I was able to meet a number of you there. I think I had 17 students in our studio, and we painted right on the grounds of the campus, which you can see it's this lovely meadow full of butterflies and just this most peaceful place to spend time and paint. And they really treated us so well. They would feed us in that barn there. They have a dining hall and fabulous food. And we were very well taken care of. So well taken care of, in fact. Here's our group painting outdoors, just a few of us. But we were so well taken care of that I'm going back. I'm going to be there again in July of next year. And we were painting at the state park. This lovely, just the beauty of the rocks and the water is so inspiring. This is another of the paintings I did on location. Maybe it looks a little bit familiar to you. And this one I actually sold to Charlie, who owns Misa, and it's probably hanging in one of their studio spaces there at the campus. Here's another little assortment of the different paintings that I did on location there. I really tried to be quite diverse in the different things that we were trying. And I just want to make sure that you guys are seeing everything. I'm running everything by myself today, and so if it goes badly, I need to be alerted. Looks like you're seeing them good. Okay, back to the slideshow. Okay, so yeah, we just painted a bunch of different things. We really tried to be inspired by the space, and it was just a wonderful week. There are spaces open in our July workshop for next year. You can find out more about the workshops I have coming up on my website on angelafehr.com. I just finished, I hear now that we are booked as well for Cornwall in England in the fall, in September 2023. So that's another date that's coming up. That one's not on my website yet. Here's another painting from Madeleine Island. I had a lot of fun with this. I think it's a little bit inspired by Ian Fennelly, who's an urban sketcher who painted there the week before I was there. Just a little bit of that, has a little bit of his feel and color, and a lot of my signature splatter. I really felt like during that week I was on a bit of a date with myself because I was traveling alone, and it was really fun to rent a moped my last day and tour the island all by myself. And I went also out on the lagoon canoeing. This is with one of my students, Martha. She took me out, and we had a lot of fun trying to identify the different critters we saw and trying to not argue over who got to steer. And yeah, I tried to share this meme with my family as much as possible. That's something else I did through the summer. Something you may not know about me is I really like making my kids laugh by sending them goofy photos. So I would just change this caption whenever I could think of something that would go well with that monkey there. And off it went to make them roll their eyes at me again. So after Madeleine Island, oh yeah, that's another thing that happened for me this summer. My husband bought me this car. It is not running. It's a project, but it was really fun. It's really fun to have. They see it in my yard and know that at some point it's going to be something I can drive in the summer once he gets a motor put into it. So it's a 71 Dodge Dart for those of you who care and about things like that. In September, the photos are a little bit out of order and a little bit goofy. In September, I went to a workshop with Fabio Cembranelli. You may have seen my video talking with him on my YouTube channel. And so in mornings and evenings, I was driving to Grand Prairie. It's about an hour and a half from my home to the workshop. And so this was the view one of the days I was back and forth to his workshop. Absolutely beautiful. And so is Fabio's paintings. Here's one of the paintings he did as a demo for us. He's so generous with his time in workshops. He is quite willing to spend the whole time painting if that's what we want. Of course, it's nice to also have some time to practice what we're seeing him do. So we went back and forth between watching him paint, doing our own paintings, and then also he was really generous with critiquing us. So here he is demonstrating. I actually sent him some photos of our region, and so he was doing a demo from a photo that I had taken. And moving on, so the workshop with Fabio was really wonderful. If he's in your region or if you have an opportunity to take a workshop with him, I would highly recommend it. He's just so generous with his time. He's really so humble. He kept apologizing for his language, his ability to speak English, because he is from Brazil. He's Portuguese, but he did amazing. He was humorous and generous and really very gracious with his time. And apparently when he's in France, he teaches in French. So that's certainly far more than I'm able to do. In October, Wade and I were able to get away for about 10 days. We flew down to Tennessee and spent some time in Tennessee and North Carolina. So this is in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and Clingman's Dome is the name of this lookout point. We also stopped by Bullington Gardens in Hendersonville. Back in 2020, I was supposed to have a workshop here. Flights were canceled the week that we were supposed to be there due to COVID, and so that workshop was canceled, and I now know the location where I'll be teaching, hopefully one day in the future, and I'm really looking forward to teaching at Bullington Gardens. You can see they have this beautiful dahlia garden, which was in peak bloom while we were there, and I just really enjoyed that abundance of dahlias. We have dahlias. I have friends who grow those flowers here, but you have to bring the roots in to winter in this cold climate, and so I don't think they ever grow quite so tall. I was also able to meet up with a group of artists at the Botanical Gardens in Asheville, and I kind of just made it a pop-up painting gathering, and I did a demonstration for a number of students who were able to come, or artists who were able to come, and we had such a nice time of visiting and just connecting in at the Botanical Gardens. It's a beautiful place, and I'm eager to go back to Asheville again. And now here we are in northern British Columbia, back home, ready to start work teaching and painting and growing as an artist. That's very important to me. This is a scene that struck me on my walk the other day. Most of the time when I'm walking, the trees look whiter, and they were really dark gray that day. And it made me think about, it inspired me a little. It made me think that that's something I'd like to paint. So I've been working on that, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so that's the quick photo gallery of what I've been doing and painting. A very quick little zip through there, and you can see my life is full. Right now, my girls are home from school. They've been away at college this year, and they were both home this week for reading week, so it's been nice to spend some time with them. And what else is going on? Tonight, I'm headed to the art gallery. They're doing one of those art battle events where they have a group of artists painting simultaneously, and so I'm excited about doing that. I do feel like I have a bit of an unfair advantage because I have painted in front of you for so many years, and so I'm really looking forward to connecting with the other artists there. However, I feel like in our small town, our arts community, a lot of them I know quite well, and they feel like family, and it's really fun to get together and cheer each other on. So that's where I've been and what I've been up to. I want to show you what I'm working on, and then we'll segue smoothly and gracefully into talking about my brand new course, Back to the Brush, How to Start Again in Watercolor. I have to keep training myself to remember the title of my own course. Okay, so we're going to switch the camera over to my work surface, and hopefully it's tidy enough to, there we go, just move my notebook. Oh, this probably I shouldn't show you. It's one of the demos from the new course. So, you know, just forget you saw that. So I showed you just a moment ago the photo of the gray tree trunks. And so that was really inspiring to me. It was something I really wanted to paint. And so I pulled out a half sheet of watercolor paper and started, I wanted, in my mind, I had an idea of soft gray tree trunks that kind of blur together. That was my one idea. I was also thinking about that foliage down below, the grasses and the leaves in those soft hues of rust and that kind of wheat color, I guess. And I know you're seeing purple on here, and I'll explain that in a minute. However, before we get there, the very first wash of this painting revealed a problem, and it was that there was a scratch on my paper right across here, and you're not going to see it probably very well. But it was something sharp had scratched this paper. It might have been, I don't think it was when I opened the package, but I keep a metal ruler in my drawer where my watercolor paper is. And it's very possible that when I yanked that ruler out of the drawer one day, I was careless and didn't realize that the corner of the ruler was scratching my paper. So I'm taking responsibility for this. I don't think it was something that happened necessarily in the store. Anyhow, I kept painting. You can see I went further than that first wash. I felt like I wanted to just see if my idea of those soft trees was going to work. And I also wondered if, because I was going to be working with branches in line, maybe I'd be able to camouflage that scratch and keep using this paper. It does have a B side. I should be able to flip it over and paint on the other side. So either way, all is not lost. But I wanted to mention this because, you know me, I'm a born teacher. I really notice how many artists feel very, very precious about absolutely everything you paint. If you put paint on a piece of paper, you feel committed to make that painting turn out somehow. And sometimes there are things that are just out of your control. Sometimes a scratch is on the paper. Sometimes your masking fluid decides it's going to permanently adhere to your paper. Sometimes you've worked on your painting for a long time, and then you make a decision that doesn't go well. I'm actually going to demonstrate that in a moment too. I'm now realizing just how many thousands of paintings I'm going to be making in my art career. This is one. And I cannot afford to be too precious about any single painting that I'm doing. No matter how much time I've invested, no matter how big the piece of paper is, I need to be able to say, this one I'm chalking up to learning, you know, whether it's because I made a mistake or there's a flaw somewhere, something I can't control. I'm going to use this as the one that helps me figure out what to do for the next painting. And when I do that, that makes this painting valuable, even with that scratch. And it helps me to step forward and not feel like I'm locked into trying to figure out how to make this scratch redeem itself. It doesn't have to. This painting, it really only took me a few minutes to do that first wash. I can move on. And I can be philosophical about it. Come on. So then that led me to painting number 2, which I started the same evening and continued in about 3 sessions. And so that's this one here. And there we go. So yes, I see someone commenting, I feel that permanent masking fluid problem. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes we're impatient with masking fluid, and some masking fluids, if you put them on wet paper or cheap paper, they are not going to want to come off. And some masking fluid, if you leave it on too long, it's going to bond with your paper permanently. So it's a thing. Okay. And I see Linda's comment that she has a Dodge Dart too. That's really awesome. The 62 is like that boxier body style. Um, they're pretty fun, early ones, yeah. Okay, so this is the second painting that I did. And this one, you can see I worked with the same colors actually. And I really started having fun building up my darks. And there's a lot that I love about this. Um, the challenge was, and I was really trying to be kind of, I don't know what the word is, a kind of an idealist about this area. I wanted it to be really suggested. I didn't want to have any one statement tree. And often I'll paint a painting with a lot of statement trees in it. And so to do one where the trees were just kind of one mass with the flow and the shapes taking the beauty, taking the role of adding beauty, it just felt really exciting to me. But something happened later on in the painting that I wasn't very happy about. I decided to put in rust and the violet, the manganese violet down here that you can see. And I forgot that when manganese violet goes down wet, it has this beautiful opacity to it, but it tends to dry quite transparent. So it kind of loses some of its impact as it dries. And so I tested out the idea here. That's why you can see the purple on this one. I came back to this and thought, what if I did some bold strokes of purple on this painting? I'll test it out on here and then I'll come back and I'll do it on here. And I came back the next day and looked at this area, and it was just too heavy, and I had robbed it of all its kind of zing and sing and all the things that kind of made this lighter and forward. So what I might have, I could have just started again. Again, it's not too precious. It's only a couple of hours of my time. It's one development piece. I'm going to keep getting closer to what I really want to say. These beautiful things up here, I can trust that I can do them again. And because they are beautiful and I don't want to lose them and they feel really special. And yet this area down here was too heavy, and I was lying in bed last night and I thought, yes, this area is heavy, but what if I scrubbed it a little bit? So that's actually what I've done. And I took, I'll get a little bit closer so you can see it. And hopefully this works. I'm not always sure. This is a new camera and I'm not sure how well it focuses. But if you can see in here and over here, that one I really like. And over here, there's a lot of little areas where I've used a stencil and one of these magic eraser microfiber sponges. And I've lifted out shapes using the stencil, which was kind of I don't have it nearby or I'd show you. And I've kind of destroyed it, so it's not one that holds up well, unfortunately. But I used that to lift out some of those heavy rust and violets that were in there. And so now we have some of the staining underneath color peeking through. And this I think it might actually work. I'm going to put this painting on my easel and just spend some time getting to know it over the next little while. I try to never judge a painting and in the moment. There are aspects of this I feel really good about. I like the way I problem solved it. I'm glad that I took it that one step further. And if it really still is just a bit too busy because there's a lot of shape in here, I can always try another version. And actually I've done that. So here's number 3. And this one's in progress, so we'll see where it goes. I haven't used any of that violet for this one, but I did use some lavender. You can see little hints of lavender. I actually hinted at the sky, which is more accurate to the original reference photo. And I really wanted the scattering of leaves across the branches of the trees to be a part of this scene. So I'm seeing that happen. From here, I'll be building out some edges and shapes and just seeing where this one ends up. and each one gets to be different. I don't get to recreate any of the magic of the previous versions, but I can trust that new magic will show up. And because there's still stuff about this I really love, and I still might try to camouflage that scratch. But, each painting brings something new to the table. Like I said, I'm going to be doing thousands of paintings in my artistic future and past and present, so I might as well not put too much stock into any single piece of art. So I really wanted to share that with you because I think it's a key, it's a hint as to what we're going to be talking about in this course titled How to Start Again. If you are an artist who has really wanted to paint, you have planned that you would paint, and then somehow there's something holding you back from actually getting up, getting out your painting stuff, and actually painting. And if that's been happening for far too long, first of all, I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. I know the feeling at the end of the day when you're like, I was going to paint today and I had no reason not to, but I just somehow didn't make it out there. I just didn't do it. And we feel guilty about it. That's another day wasted. And if you've felt that way, if that's been your experience, I would love to see you say so in the comments. Just let me know I'm not alone there. Please. I actually sometimes think that my art career, some of what I'm doing today, came out of a fear that I would become a mom who used to paint. I knew so many people who would tell me that, yeah, I used to paint, I used to have all of these hobbies, and then I had kids, and it was like I felt almost like they were telling me you can't have outside interests, you have to have kids, and that's the only thing. And I really, really didn't want to be that person. And certainly when I started raising my children, I had a lot less time to paint, and I ended up setting a goal of just trying to do 3 decent paintings a year. So that was kind of the benchmark that I set for myself. Yes, and I'm seeing other people talking about their painting block in the comments. Dallart says this was me today. Yep, been there. This is still, it's still my reality. Is there are many nights when I get up from supper, I make a cup of coffee, and I don't leave the living room for the rest of the day. Sometimes, you want to hang out with your people, and that's a good thing. But I don't think they'd begrudge me an hour in the studio, and yet somehow I don't do it. And we tend to beat ourselves up about this. And that's, as I thought about this idea of trying to figure out what will motivate you to actually create a sustainable creative practice, one that actually is a practice and not just a once a year or once in a while and then long dry spell, I realized that if you're struggling to be consistent, to show up and do your art again and again and again on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, if you're not eager to get out there and paint, maybe that's a clue that there's something not right, something not healthy about your creative practice. And rather than feeling guilty that you're not doing what you enjoy, what you believe to enjoy, maybe you should recognize, maybe you can recognize that you might be protecting yourself. Maybe your inner critic has gotten so harsh and so hard on you that it's safer to stay in the living room because you don't like what you hear in your head when you're painting. This is a real thing. It's a real problem. It's something that I've had to learn how to coach myself through because there's always going to be that little voice that's just the party pooper. It's going to point out everything you're doing wrong and all of the ways in which you're not disciplined enough to actually succeed. And you don't want to hang out with that voice. So yeah, you're gonna procrastinate. Yeah, you're gonna find other stuff to do. So let's work together. That became the goal of this Back to the Brush course. how do we figure out how to heal a creative practice that's become toxic, that's not helping your mental health? If we can do that, then we get to love painting, and it becomes much easier to show up and paint. Does that sound like it makes any sense, resonate to you at all? I'm going to look at the comments for a minute and just see if I can catch up. There might be some questions I can answer for you. Gretchen says, I'm on a roll right now, but I know that can change and often does. Gretchen, I think that's a really helpful thing to recognize. Often we fail to see that there is a pattern, a cyclical pattern to success and failure in the outcome of our paintings. So I know that if I'm excited about what I'm making today, at some point I'm probably going to hit a wall where I'm learning a new concept or pushing myself to a new, more courageous design, and that's going to result in more unanticipated outcomes, more outcomes I'm not happy with. So if I'm in a learning phase, I'm going to be painting a lot of stuff that I don't want to show anyone. Knowing that helps me to be able to deal with, those periods of feeling like I don't have anything to show for my time in the studio. Callie says, I get to paint every day, but I feel that I'm not improving or creating any paintings that make me happy. I think we're going to be addressing that in the course as well, because I've noticed that some artists, we kind of clock in and go through the motions rather than kind of showing up and putting your whole heart into it. And for me, pouring my heart into my work requires almost daily check-ins. and I often only realize that I've kind of gotten safe and complacent after it's been happening for a while. We like to find a place where we feel safe and then stay there. And my art always thrives the most when I'm willing to be brave and courageous and take risks, and I need to feel safe in order to do that. So we are going to be focusing on creating a safe creative practice, and I feel like I can be most authentic when I show up in a place where I'm safe, where I'm seen and allowed to be who I was meant to be. And that's really the goal of a healthy creative practice, is figuring out how to provide that to yourself. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Laura, that's a great comment. Just so that's an insight I wanted to address. Laura says, I lost my mom recently, and my husband has cancer, so everything has been put onto the back burner. I really believe in banishing this idea of feeling guilty for what you're not doing, because stuff like this happens when you are in a phase of your life where you're going through loss, or a lot is, maybe you're a caregiver and a lot is being demanded on you. I think we often have been fed this message that then our creativity should be some kind of healing, restorative thing, and then we feel guilty if we're not actually inspired to go and make. You have to, one of the most important things about a healthy creative habit is recognizing, learning how to recognize what do I need right now. And sometimes that means, yeah, I need to set this stuff aside so I can, be over here. And I think even this message that we get sometimes that, okay, your creativity is supposed to be healing, so go paint and you'll feel better. That's a false message, and it can put a lot of pressure on us to make our creative practice into something that maybe we don't know how to do that at this point. And maybe that's not creativity's job in this place in your life. Really allowing making art to be what it is, and not putting pressure on it to be something else, if that makes sense. These are hard things to talk about because they're all internal. What works for one person doesn't work for everyone, but there are things that we can do to recognize when we're moving away from a healthy creative practice and putting a burden on it or on ourselves to make art do something that it really isn't meant to do. Let's take a look here. One thing that Um, One thing that I want to address, I just want to talk a little bit about what the course actually contains, because guess what? I don't get to fix your broken creative practice. That's your job. If something's, I don't like the word broken actually, but if something's not healthy in your creative practice, it's really, you're the one who has to diagnose it and make choices to correct whatever's out of balance there. And I like the idea of being able to facilitate it by sharing what has worked for me. And one thing that's worked for me really well is being a good coach to myself. And as a coach, most artists, we paint alone. And so we do have to kind of encourage ourselves through all the phases of the learning process. And for me, that is one way that I do that is with little slogans, little mottos that you might have even heard me say some of them. Things like, you are the most important thing you bring to your art, or all painting is learning, no matter what, as long as you show up and move your brush, you're learning. Trust the process is a big one that I often say. And all of these little slogans, most of them came out of me saying something that I felt like I needed to hear, and not being 100% sure if it was true or not. Mistakes mean you're growing. That was another one. But the funny thing that happened was, the more I would think about those little one-liners, you are the most important thing you bring to your art. Is that true? Do I believe it? Do I act like I believe it? Is it true? But the more I would think about these things, the more I would start to see the truth in them. And suddenly they became really important to me. And they weren't just something I said to make myself feel better, but I started to really own them. And they did help me to remember to be brave, to feel like my authenticity was the most important thing, and to set aside my fears of other people's judgments, my impatience at not being as good as I wanted to be. I needed those one-liners to kind of get me back on track when I started to slide. And so I decided that for this course, we would base each module of the course around a different affirmation. One that directly addresses a block you might be feeling, something negative that might be impacting your work and keeping you from painting with freedom and authenticity. And through each module, we would take a look at maybe some of the thinking that could be out of balance, even tending toward toxic, something you might be saying to kind of protect yourself from your own creative fears. And we would tackle that mindset, as well as not just with maybe a phrase or a little lecture pep talk from me, but with exercises that you could do physically in the studio to remind you of what's really important and help you to just settle in to your own artistic journey. I mean, isn't that the goal? Make this a really special, fun time for you. I love that idea. I love it for me, and I sure do love it for you too. I love seeing it when that happens. When I have a painting student who comes to me and says, Angela, I was playing with my brush, and all of a sudden I had this idea and everything came alive to me. And I know some of you here in the chat have told me things like that before. It's those little warm-ups and play exercises that can help cement some of that that realization that you can be your own favorite artist, that you are on the right track, and that there are so many things you bring to your painting process that are good and valuable and worth building on. That's what I'm excited to share with you in this course as we go through it together. Okay, so let me just take a look at the comments here. And then we're just going to quickly shift over. We've got some really good, yeah, Tara, I really like your comment. Art is so wonderful in hard places sometimes, but we can't receive ultimate happiness from something that isn't a source of ultimate happiness. We have to let creativity be what it is. Yeah, we can really put a lot of pressure on on these poor paintbrushes to do something that inanimate objects. I could go buy another pair of shoes, but you know what? They're going to make me feel good for a few days, but then I might just need that other pair of shoes again. So, we know that. We know that there are certain things that are ultimately, we're just going to chase that next thing. In making art a source of joy, that has to come from inside of me. Yeah. There's a lot more I could say about that, but we're going to save it for the course. Let me just tell you a little bit about how Back to the Brush works. And I'm going to pop a link to the course in the comments right now. It's also in the description under the video. It's learn.angelafehr.com/courses start-again. Yeah, it's much easier just to click the link. Back to the Brush, how to start again in watercolor. Officially starts, you don't get to start again till November 14th. On November 14th, we're going to kick off the course with a live Zoom session. This is optional to attend. You can always watch the recording after, and I have 3 times that are available, so hopefully one of those will work with your schedule. But the goal there is just to get started with a little discussion about what you might be struggling with, questions you might have, and an overview of really what the root of all of this procrastination and guilt is about. And we're going to just unpack that just a little bit more. Following that, on November 14th, the rest of the course content will roll out over a couple of weeks. I don't want you to just devour it all at once. A healthy creative process is one in which you take your time and move through each module at a pace that works for you. Each section of the course includes some exercises for your mindset, as well as exercises you can do here in the studio that will help make painting feel fun and approachable again, and help you set really good guidelines and expectations for what you should be seeing happen in your creative practice. I think a lot of what we struggle with happens because we don't have reasonable expectations. We compare others' outcomes to our messy middles, and we know that's not going to work. But talking our brains out of that is a whole nother story. And so I'm excited to do that together with you. Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm answering questions here as we go. Regarding the course, this is a course where you get to use what you have. I don't have any supply list for you. It's all about using your own paint and paper and brushes, and just kickstarting that creative habit once again. I can see this course as working well for someone who is struggling to get started again, feeling a bit of a creative block, or even in a learning cycle where maybe you're just struggling to learn a new technique and you're not quite, you're feeling a little discouraged. These are tools you can use to just coach yourself to growth. If you're actively painting right now and you're feeling great about your process, this might not be the course for you, although I think you'll see some real resonance with what you already know with what I'm sharing. So, it might just be that kind of affirmation that could really encourage you. I would encourage you, if you've followed along with me for years and painted with me in some of my other online courses, I will be doing, this is kind of a mini version of my big Mastery Foundations course, which I've taught in the past. And I'll be resuming that, doing another session of that deep dive course in the new year. So if you're wanting to kickstart a creative practice, one thing that I have happen is sometimes I'll sell a larger course, like a big deep dive into watercolor. And I'll have people start painting with me who have not painted in months. It's not a fantastic idea to take a big watercolor course when you're already struggling to stay motivated in your creative practice. Taking a course like this that helps you get back into the habit of showing up to paint, it's a much better way to prepare yourself for an in-person workshop or a longer, more in-depth course or course of study. So I like the idea of this being kind of a bite-sized version, something you can chew on for the next couple of months to really help you just reestablish that healthy creative practice through the winter. I will be sharing more about the course in my emails over the next few days next week. And so if you do want to know more about it, I will be answering frequently asked questions and so forth in my email. If you're not on my mailing list, do head over to angelafehr.com and you can find out more about everything that I do. My number one goal, what has really turned the lights on for me, is encouraging other artists to find the same freedom and joy in watercolor that I have. That commitment to authenticity that says, I don't know if anybody's going to like this, but it's so resonant for me. I'm so excited by what I see happening on the paper. I just want to share it. It's worth more to me than, for me, being authentic in my work is worth more to me than any pinnacle of technical skill. When I can see that I've painted something that makes me feel alive, there's something that's hugely valuable in that. As much as I talk about not making your paintings too precious, it's that ring of authenticity that is really deeply precious to me. And it's a hard thing to show up and let out on your paper. It's vulnerable and scary. And I think that's why it can sometimes be so hard to paint. So if you're feeling any of that internal wrestling with your inner authenticity, feeling safe to show up, this is why I created Back to the Brush. And I hope you'll think about joining us in the course. Again, the link is in the description below the video. The course starts with our live lesson on November 14th, and from there you can go through the course content at your own pace. Thanks for watching today. It was fun to give you a little bit of an update on what I've been up to. I always do try to share weekly on Facebook and Instagram kind of these little peeks into my studio as well, since I don't do as much live video anymore. And so you can always engage with me there. And always my website usually has my most up-to-date workshop schedule, a link to my email list where I always make sure that's the news that goes out there is as fresh as it gets, and always meant to encourage and inspire you in your own creative practice. That's what this is all about. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, I'll see you again very soon, hopefully in Back to the Brush. Bye for now.